Hello everyone, I'm Luxin, and welcome to the pilot episode of my Xenogears recaps. Why am I doing this? Well, basically, I'm playing through Xenogears for the first time, and I'm recording my entire playthrough so I can make videos on Xenogears and actually have high quality footage of the game. I am uploading these videos uncommentated to my second channel, but I didn't commentate them obviously because I would rather have a pure experience, be able to focus completely on the game when I'm playing it for the first time. I might do blind Let's Plays of other things that are less important to me than this, but for this one, it kind of had to be this way. I recognize that not a lot of people have the time and willingness to sit through dozens upon dozens of 2-hour-long, completely uncommentated videos, and also, even if I did do a commentated Let's Play, I know a lot of people wouldn't watch that either, just because of the amount of time it takes up, especially for a game like this. So I figured, since a lot of people want to watch my Xenogears videos and figure out where it fits in all the grand scheme of things, but don't have the time or willingness to watch a full LP, I can do this, basically explain the game as I go along, sort of intersperse a recap of the actual events of the game with anecdotes from my own playthrough, and see where things go from there. This is very much a pilot episode, so I'll be taking a lot of feedback into account, just based on how much stuff you want me to cover, how much of my own playthrough you want to talk about, whether you want me to be objective or make jokes, video length, all that kind of stuff. The only other thing worth talking about is probably that this is part 1, but if you decide you want longer videos, then part 2 will become part 1 and will be this with additional stuff tacked on to the end, so just be warned, I might technically double upload this video later on. And also, naming-wise, I will be sticking to the English translations of names that appear in the games themselves throughout this entire recap, even if that name was something that was misspelled in Japanese or mistranslated into English. This is just to keep consistency, and I guess keep up with anyone who might be playing along on your own or stuff like that. So be warned, wikis and fan translations of Japanese-only works will probably contain different names for a lot of characters, but I'll be sticking with what the game says. There will be quite a few typos and mistranslations in the English script, but it's very hard to fault the localization team for it, considering how it was one guy on a time crunch. With that out of the way though, let's finally get into the game. Upon starting a new file, or just leaving the title screen idle for long enough, we're met with mysterious text. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. A massive spaceship is lighting up with danger signs. The technobabble that the bridge officer spouts seems to be genetics related. An attempt to fix the issue by the captain fails, and it seems like something is taking over the ship, rerouting its autopilot to head towards the main planet. A call to the engine room falls on dead ears, and the phrase "Ye shall be as gods" is spammed on the bridge monitors. The captain orders an evacuation, but the ship's own weapons turn on the escape shuttles and destroy them. Pulling out a picture of his wife and daughter, the latter of whom bears a striking resemblance to the woman on the box art of the game, he resolves himself and self-destructs the ship, which goes crashing to a nearby planet, where a blue-haired woman rises from the wreckage beside the ocean. This will not be explained for a very, very long time. Next though, in an opening lore dump that would bring any Fire Emblem fan to tears, we're introduced to this game's world. On Ignis, the largest continent on this planet, a war between the Kislev Empire to the north and the Kingdom of Ave to the south has been raging for so long that nobody even remembers the cause. The fighting was recently escalated due to both sides making use of artifacts from ancient civilizations, which were repaired by the church-like cultural preservation institution known as Ethos. Instead of ground troops, fighting was now waged between humanoid mechs known as Gears. Kislev had access to better artifacts, which gave them the upper hand, but a mysterious new force known as Gebler appeared and allied with Ave, evening the odds and eventually allowing them to take more territory for themselves. The story proper opens in the small Ave village of Lahan, right near the Kislev border. The village is on fire and under attack as a man named Fei Fong Wong tries to fight off attacking Gears in his own. He has a small bit of success, but is clearly winded as another man named Citan tells him not to fight here. The scene fades away to reveal that it was just a painting Fei is working on. From here you can then talk to some NPCs to get even more exposition. Fei was brought to the village with no memories 3 years ago by a mysterious masked man who placed him in the care of the village chief. he was accepted by the community and now teaches martial arts to the children. Faye's closest friends, Timothy and Alice, are getting married tomorrow, and there's a big discussion going on in his house about the wedding. Everyone is excited for it except for Alice's younger brother Dan, who doesn't seem to like Timothy a whole lot, and very, very clearly wishes his sister was marrying Faye instead. After some terrible well puns, gambling on rock, paper, scissors, and a Chrono Trigger cameo that makes a lot of sense if you really think about it, Faye checks up on Alice, and some very, very awkward potential romantic tension ensues as she ponders a situation in which she'd be marrying Faye instead. Before he leaves, she does ask him to head up the mountain to ask the local doctor Satan Uzuki to borrow a camera for the wedding. The mountain path up to Satan's house is your introductory dungeon, and at the top, Faye finds him tinkering with a vehicle, but not before his wife Yui comes out with this fantastic line. Satan shows him an artifact that opens up into a music box, which plays a song that makes Faye feel strange. He agrees to eat dinner with the couple and their silent daughter Midori, but after leaving the shed, Satan talks to himself in a manner that implies he knows a lot more than he lets on. The music box breaks, and Satan worries if it's an omen of things to come. After dinner, Faye heads back down the mountain, and is alarmed to see giant figures flying towards the village. Satan reveals that they're Kislev gears, and the two hurry down to see what's going on. It turns out that the gears are attacking Lahan, and that while Timothy and Alice are safe, Dan is completely missing. Faye and Satan take control of the evacuation, but Faye spots a gear with a dead pilot, and upon seeing a sinister-looking boy with wild hair, is compelled to board it, to Satan's many objections. The gear interfaces with him, identifying him as a lamb, and giving the player a tutorial on mech combat. He fends off a few enemies, but is quickly surrounded as another imposing gear watches the battle unfold. Dan shows up, having stayed behind to rescue Alice's wedding dress, and Satan worries that he might awake if things keep up like this, as well as saying that Faye is bound by the dark, cruel destiny of God. Timothy comes back to save Dan, but is gunned down, seemingly at the order of the imposing gear. This causes something to snap inside Faye, as he sees images of a pendant swinging and an innocent-looking child turning into the menacing one from before. His gear lets off an incredible shockwave, and he blacks out. He comes to in the woods near a few villagers, and Dan immediately starts screaming at him, calling him a murderer. Satan reveals that the energy he released destroyed the entire village and killed most of the inhabitants, including Alice. He also suggests that he leave, as the troops are likely still after him and the remaining villagers are very, very clearly scared of him. Faye decides to head to Ave proper by way of the nearby Black Moon Forest, and with one last look at the gear, he departs. This little jaunt through the world map to get into the forest is the first time you're forced to hear it, so it's probably a good time to mention that the world map theme, Emotions, is fantastic. Partway through the forest, Faye is held up by an orange-haired woman who also looks like the one on the cover art. She initially speaks in a foreign language, but quickly switches to one he understands. She nervously holds him at gunpoint, remarking that he's not one of the Kislev soldiers after her, but that she also has orders to kill every lamb she comes in contact with. She asks Faye for directions out, but he doesn't know either, and gets pretty suicidal, commenting on how worthless he is and trying to get the woman to shoot him. She's then attacked by forest-dwelling monsters, and Faye immediately jumps into action to protect her, somehow instinctively referring to her as Ellie. When the two talk over a fire and he finally gets her to open up a little, she reveals that her name is Elheim, her nickname actually being Ellie. They spend the night together for safety, and Faye has a dream where a younger version of himself is chasing strange figures through a desert until Ellie speaks to him. In the morning, the two set out again, and you get your first taste of multiple party members. Ellie asks Faye what he meant about his life being worthless, and he explains the incident at Lahan. She flashes back to herself flying in a regiment of gears and having to make an emergency landing in the village. Faye decides to start blaming the attack on the invading gears, not his own losing control, and Ellie admonishes him, calling him a coward for ignoring his role in the destruction. He agrees and starts wallowing, but Ellie almost immediately seems conflicted about having said what she did, flashing back again to a hallway covered in blood that she seemingly was the cause of. She remarks to herself that she's also a coward, but is then attacked by a literal T-Rex from nowhere. Faye hears her screams and rushes in to engage, but is obviously hopelessly outmatched, fighting a dinosaur with some special karate moves. A few turns into the battle though, Satan comes by in the machine he was fixing earlier, carrying the gear Faye had piloted before. He makes the difficult decision to get back in and utterly trounces the beast. They talk about what just happened, Citan remarking that an ordinary gear couldn't have beaten it, and also name-dropping that the name of this one is Veltal. Faye says that he hates gears and doesn't want to have that much power, but Citan tries to get him to bring Veltal along with him, if only for protection from his pursuers. They decide to camp for the night since Ellie is still injured and Veltal needs repairs, and later on, after Faye falls asleep, Citan gives up on fixing the gear and talks to Ellie. He reveals that he's able to speak her language and deduces that another empty gear found near the village was actually hers. She's in the military and was part of the group that attacked Lahan. He convinces her to leave before Faye wakes up, but she expresses regret that she can't apologize to him. Citan is surprised by this, saying she's an oddity among her people for actually caring about surface dwellers. The conversation continues a bit, and Ellie name-drops a place called Jugend before finally leaving. In the morning, Faye reveals that he heard some of the conversation, but has decided to accept blame for what happened at Lahan, and the two decide to head to the town of Dazil to figure out what's going on in the war, and to find parts for Veltal. On the way out, they spot an airship that Citan identifies as belonging to Gebler, special forces from the Sacred Empire of Solaris, and theorizes that Ellie is a member. On the little world map jaunt from the forest to Dazil, if you find yourself in a desert dungeon type area, leave immediately before you get stuck. You're not supposed to be here yet, and when you do go for the story, you'll actually have a guide to follow through so you know the right path, but without that, you can easily get stuck for 45 minutes like I did if you wander around now, so if Citan is in your party, do not go here and leave the instant you arrive. Dazil is a bustling town, the center for all ruin excavation in Ave, and has an Athos facility that Faye and Citan head to in search of gear parts. Turns out that they don't have parts for Veltal since it's a brand new military gear, and that facility only services the worker gears that are actually excavating the ruins. They discuss what to do next. Faye wants to abandon Veltal, but Citan wants to move it as far from Lahan as possible because it's very clearly a target for both sides of the conflict. Citan then rents a sand vehicle and heads out looking for wrecks of military gears to find parts, and after being warned of the danger, Faye heads out to follow him. I know this is a kinda stupid and really awkward place to end the video, but that's what I'm gonna do for now, just because I'm busy, I don't know how long videos you guys want, and this covers the first 2 sessions that I played when I played the game myself, so it's not a great story place to end off, but just the Lahan part wasn't really 10 minutes, so I kinda had to break 10 minutes. But anyway, like I said, leave your opinions on this style of video and how you'd like me to proceed with it in the comments. I will not necessarily reply and get back to you, but I will read all of them and take feedback into account when I record the next one. But yeah, I hope you're excited for more Xenogears content on this channel, and until next time, this is Luxin, signing off.